What is up, guys? Stark here, and today I'm going to rank every single episode from Season 9 of The Walking Dead from worst to best. Now, I just want to front by saying that I really enjoyed this season, like, a lot, and this is one of the few seasons of the show where I don't think there's a really bad episode, so even the episodes I have ranked pretty low are still pretty good compared to what we've had in the past couple of seasons. Also, this is my opinion, so if I ranked your favorite episode in the show's history a bit too low, please try to refrain from sending me threats to my well-being down in the comment section below. Also, there are going to be spoilers all over this video, so if you're not caught up, I wouldn't watch. Anyways, let's get started because this is probably going to be a pretty long video. Alright, coming in at the bottom of the list for me is episode 7, Stradivarius, I don't know. This was the only episode in the entire season I can say I didn't really particularly enjoy and probably wouldn't be too excited about watching again whenever I rewatch the season again. It's mostly a setup episode for the mid-season finale, which is fine, but this season was just so good in most other areas where a setup episode like this one, I just didn't really enjoy it as much compared to the other episodes. So yeah, I honestly didn't enjoy this one that much, but it's still the best, worst episode we've had in a long time. And I did enjoy the fleshing out that Magna's group got in this episode, so that was one positive point for me. Alright, ranked at 15 is The Bridge, episode 2 of this season. This episode's pretty solid and starts to show that hostilities are rising again with the Saviors at the bridge site. There's some pretty good fallout at the hilltop following Gregory's hanging and Earl's arrest, and we get a good interaction with Negan and Rick towards the end of the episode. The climax of the episode was pretty entertaining as well, where we saw Aaron get his arm crushed and amputated along with Daryl fighting Justin. Again, this episode isn't particularly bad, but it's just not the standard of what else I've got ahead of it in my opinion, so that's why The Bridge comes in at number 15. At number 14, we've got Guardians, which is the lowest ranked episode from an excellent back half of the season. This episode showed a bit about how the Whisperers work from within, which was pretty interesting, but this was just another development and setup episode that I didn't find particularly entertaining to watch. The duo of Alexandria conflicts with the radio and the love quadrangle just really didn't do it for me here. Still not bad by any means, but I do have Guardians in at 14. Alright, number 13 is Warning Signs, which was an episode I did enjoy. I just want to remind everybody that outside of maybe Stradivarius, I really did enjoy all of the episodes this season a lot, and I'm having a really hard time placing some of these episodes so low. In this episode, we get a bit more information on the whole helicopter storyline, which I only tolerate existing because it ends up saving Rick. But the big parts of this episode were the revelation that Oceanside was the one killing the Saviors, Arat's death, and other tensions rising high among the communities in the camp. All in all, a good episode and one that probably would have been in the top 10 most seasons, but it comes in at 13 in an excellent 9th season. Who Are You Now comes in at 12 and is the first episode following Rick's apparent death in 905. This episode kind of disappointed me at first, but on a rewatch, I recognized how necessary it was to the story. It was an incredibly slow setup episode, which I'm not a huge fan of, and I really didn't like Michonne's little narration dialogue over the first 2 minutes for some reason, even after a rewatch. However, we get introduced to Magna's group and start to really get to know the characters again after a 6-year time skip, that's why I do really like the title, Who Are You Now? Because these characters aren't the same people we left them off with in the previous episode. So we obviously couldn't jump right back into the action after what happened in what comes after. So I do appreciate Who Are You Now as a good plot advancing episode, and it comes in at number 12. In the number 11 spot is Adaptation, the mid-season premiere. In this episode, we get introduced to Lydia, and Alpha also makes an appearance right at the end when she captures Luke and Alden. Jesus' funeral was very well done, along with all of the Negan scenes we have throughout the episode. Obviously, the highlights were supposed to be Lydia, Daryl, Michonne, and Henry's scenes in the jail cell, and I thought those were really well done as well, and great at setting up future episodes. So kind of another setup episode here, but a little bit higher tension, especially with Negan also getting out of Alexandria. So I enjoyed it, yeah, and it comes in at number 11. Cracking the first of the top 10 is The Obliged, which is Rick's penultimate episode. This was pretty much a setup episode on mega steroids, and I really did kind of enjoy it. It kind of sucked to watch at first because we knew our time was winding down with Rick Grimes, but after you get past that, it's really good. Rick and Carol's final conversation was done well, but Rick and Daryl in the pit towards the end was one of the best delivered scenes in the history of the show, especially when you know what comes next. There were other secondary plot lines like Negan and Michonne and Anne and Gabriel, but Rick, Daryl, and Carol really made this episode for me, so the Obliged did have to crack the top 10. In the number 9 spot is Bounty. Bounty was another great episode, and I'm sad I have to put it so far down on the list, but there was one big thing I kind of didn't like about it, and the main killer for me in this episode, before I do get on to what I did love about it, was the whole thing with the kingdom. Typically, I love seeing Carol, King Ezekiel, and Jerry, but they just kind of felt out of place in a super high tense episode like this one. Their whole little side plot line just didn't mesh well with what was going on at the hilltop and would have been better saved for a different episode, in my opinion. Anyways, the highlights of this episode were obviously the confrontation between the Hilltop and the Whisperers, and Connie saving the baby in the cornfield was a phenomenal scene. I was a bit surprised to see both Alden and Luke get out of there alive, but I'm not going to dock the episode for not killing anybody important. But yeah, the Bounty was a really good episode. I kind of would have liked if the Kingdom stuff would have been in a separate episode, but it doesn't bring it down too much for me. Coming in at number 8 is an episode that was highly anticipated for me, and I'm sure a lot of others, and one I figured would probably end up being in my top 3, which is Chokepoint. Now, let me front by saying this was a really great episode, and I did enjoy it all. But there are a few little logic things that I really feel like I need to nitpick that kind of took me out of it a bit when I watched the show from a critical point of view. First, I was fine with Daryl holding his own against Beta in a fight. If Daryl wouldn't have had that prep time, he would have gotten himself killed. So I'm glad they kind of did show him prepare and get ready for it, and then rewarded him for that preparation by letting him survive. In the actual fight, though, I think it's kind of dumb that Beta survives getting pushed down multiple floors in an elevator shaft with only a few busted teeth. That should have been scrapped altogether because Beta does need to survive this fight for the story. But big tough guy or not, he shouldn't have been walking away from falling 30-40 feet into a hard metal floor and only walking away with a few busted teeth and maybe a sore back. Next, even if you leave that in, I thought it was even stupider that Daryl didn't fire a bolt down at him just to make sure he was dead. Outside of that, though, the fight scene itself was really greatly choreographed and enjoyable to watch, and I also really liked the scenes that Daryl and Connie and Henry and Lydia shared together. The highway stuff was interesting as well, although it kind of took a whole backseat to the whole Daryl versus Beta fight that was hyped up. Although I kind of did a double take and said, really? When Carol offering a movie to Ozzy and his group helped get them out of a really hostile situation and gave them a new ally. All in all, Chokepoint was really good, and it had just a few annoying flaws that prevent it from being perfect, but I would gladly rewatch it any day. Coming in at the number 7 spot is The Storm, the season finale of Season 9, and like Chokepoint, I thought it was a really good episode that had a few annoying logical flaws that stopped it from being a truly great episode. After the prior episode, which will obviously be covered further down on this list, I think The Storm did a really good job introducing another antagonist in the form of the weather, while also being the best character development episode of the season. The collapse of Carol and Ezekiel's marriage was really sad to see for both characters, and I thought Lydia was the top character of the episode for me, especially in her interactions with Carol throughout the episode. Negan's interactions with Judith and the rest of the Alexandria crew was really great to watch as well. My nitpicks for this episode are that I think the fireplace explosion was a bit over the top in terms of graphics, especially since Eugene and the others are right near it when it blows up, yet none of them even have a minor burn afterwards. Also, when Judith chased Dog and got lost in the storm, it was kind of annoying that a walled community like Alexandria seemed like a massive and disorienting Arctic field, and that nobody besides Negan really went to help a little girl like that. I just thought that was a little odd. Like Chokepoint, this was a really great episode in many aspects, and one I would happily watch again. It was an upper tier season finale and left us with a good yet not annoying cliffhanger for next season with the radio. It did just have a few little things that kind of bugged me when I watched it through on a critical level, which prevented me from putting it in the top 5 like I was originally going to. Scars comes in at number 6 and was an episode I really didn't have any major problems with at all, which is why it's so high up on the list. I'm kind of glad it wasn't a straight flashback episode because those tend to get kind of boring and annoying. And I'd assume that, and since I'd assume everybody that's watching this video has seen it, I'm not going to get into the huge specifics of the episode. We all know what happens, and it was pretty controversial. But I think we can all agree that it was a great mix of controversial, shocking, and also really heartbreaking. I think the only thing I would have changed is maybe having this episode a little bit earlier on in the season, because this was episode 14 of the season, and the whole X-Scar thing was introduced and then pretty much forgotten about for multiple episodes. So it would have been cool to see what happened to Michonne and Daryl a bit sooner, but I also understand that Alexandria bringing in Lydia was supposed to be the reason that these old wounds were opened up for Michonne, so I kind of get it, and I'm not faulting the episode at all for being late in the season. All in all, it was a great episode that did a great job at meshing the past and present into a cohesive story. I really don't have any problems with it, and Scars comes in at number 6. At the back end of the top 5 is Omega, which tells a horrifying story of domestic abuse. It was really heartbreaking when you realize that Alpha, even from the get-go of the apocalypse, like 30 days in, was just this terrible person. I understand she was trying to protect Lydia, but she kills her father because he doesn't want them leaving a relatively safe location. Alpha had her mind so manipulated that she didn't know what was real until she really started getting grilled about it, and by the end of the episode it was pretty chilling to see the now bald Alpha leading her group of Whisperers after all that backstory we had just gotten about her throughout the entire episode. We also had the secondary storyline of Magnus' group going out to search for Luke, which has continued to integrate us with this new group of survivors in what was a really well-rounded and well-done and kind of depressing episode. I really did enjoy Omega a lot. It was definitely one of the best of the back half. In the 4th spot is the season premiere, A New Beginning. This might be a bit high and a bit controversial for some people, but I really just did love seeing the whole cast together fighting for a common goal in Washington, D.C. I thought it was really cool. Especially since we knew Rick and Maggie were leaving after the season. I just really enjoyed seeing them both again for the first time, even if the episode didn't really ramp up towards the end. When Gregory riles up Earl and convinces him to attack Maggie, I really thought that Enid and baby Herschel were seriously hurt for a second. And the whole final confrontation between Maggie and Gregory and his eventual hanging was really excellently done. It was a great scene. This episode isn't quite in the level of No Sanctuary or The Day Will Come When You Won't Be in terms of season premieres, but it's just a bit below. I really did enjoy it a lot, and it set a great tone for the rest of the season, in my opinion. The mid-season finale, Evolution, comes in at number 3. This is where the Whisperers are officially introduced, and we lose Jesus to a surprise attack from them. Negan is also able to escape his cell in the episode due to negligence from Gabriel, so we were able to have 2 really good mid-season cliffhangers in this episode. The music was bone-chilling and very well done, which really added to the scary aspect that Angela Kang said the episode was trying to go for. Magna and Yumiko also reinforced their roles within our original group of survivors, and since I love both those characters a lot, I was really happy to see it. I have no qualms at all with this episode, and I honestly believe it might be the strongest mid-season finale since Too Far Gone back in Season 4. It was very well done. My only qualm is that Jesus died, but we knew there were outside things happening there, so it's not too much of a surprise. It just kind of sucks we had to see him go so early. Alright, rev up your angry comments, because coming in at number 2 is Rick Grimes' final episode, What Comes After. Hey, I ranked it second. I liked it a lot. I love this episode to death, and I definitely have it in my top 10 all-time episodes throughout the entire series. It probably would have been number 1 in almost any other season in recent memory besides this one. But this fantastic episode just got unlucky enough to be in one of the show's best seasons, and it does get outshadowed, in my opinion, by one other episode. However, Andy Lincoln was phenomenal in this episode, and seeing Shane, Sasha, and especially Herschel again since we lost Scott Wilson last year one last time was so awesome. The side plot with Maggie, Michonne, and Negan was extremely tense and brilliantly acted by all 3. This was Maggie's final episode as well, at least for now, and she put on a fantastic performance. I could honestly talk about this episode for a really long time, but they sent Andy Lincoln out with a bang, literally, and although it is relatively far-fetched that he was able to survive everything he went through up to that point, I'm glad he did survive and was able to keep the door open for future involvement in the series. The time skip was a welcome addition to the episode, as they easily could have ended it with the helicopter carrying Rick away, but I'm glad they were able to set up what comes after, Rick Grimes, with his daughter and a new group who proves to be important in the conflicts to come. So again, one of my favorite episodes ever, great music, great acting by the major players, and we got to see Herschel again. So yeah, this episode is a definite 10 out of 10. And the number one spot on our list, the episode that was able to beat out the final episode of Rick Grimes, it had to be The Calm Before. Comic readers knew that this was coming all along, but the way the episode started out on such a happy note, with tons of reunions of characters we've all grown to love, and four major communities that we've been following for seasons. It reunites all of them, makes it so happy, and then it just does the biggest 180 this show has ever done in one episode, in my opinion, and ends on one of the most depressing and dark points that The Walking Dead's ever hit. Maybe the most depressing and dark point that The Walking Dead's ever hit. Alpha infiltrating the fair was flat out creepy, and her final confrontations of the season with both Lydia and Daryl were very well acted by all three of them, especially Samantha Morton, who plays Alpha. Obviously, the Pike scene will go down as one of the biggest holy shit moments of the entire series, and losing characters like Ozzy, Tammy Rose, Enid, Tara, Henry, even those teenager kids that we really didn't like that much. It was just really tough to watch. Sadiq's speech at the end and that flashback of the Pike victims fighting for their lives, along with the great music, was honestly the first time I've ever teared up a bit watching this show, because you knew that these characters weren't making it out of there. They were fighting a lost cause, and they never had a chance to take down all of those Whisperers in there, but they still fought for each other, and they fought for survival, and it was just really sad to watch knowing that they didn't make it. So yeah, this episode's perfect for me. If I ever felt like making a top 10 episodes of all time in the series, this one would be easily in the top 3 and probably a contender for the top spot, with episodes like Too Far Gone and No Way Out, No Sanctuary, like a truly elite Walking Dead episode. It was a great way to begin wrapping up the season, but I'm also glad it wasn't the season finale, because I think The Storm was a great wrap-up following the huge events that took place in this episode. So yeah, The Calm Before, perfect. I'm sorry I had to rank it ahead of Rick Grimes, but this was just a better episode. It really was. One of the best episodes this series has ever put out, ever, in my opinion. And that'll do it for the rankings of the episodes of Season 9 of The Walking Dead. I'm sure nobody out there is going to fully agree with my list, and I'm already ready and willing to siphon through comments, sending me death threats and complaining that I didn't have what comes after number 1. But hey, it's my opinion. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please leave your rankings of the episodes of this season in the comment section down below, and if you guys really enjoyed, I could go on and do the other seasons of the show. I'd be glad to do so. Until next time, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys later.